breakthrough, deliverance, transformation, change. The reality is many of us are waiting on God to do things that he promised, or so we think. It's not always that we're waiting on God, but a lot of times God is waiting on us. We are expecting God to do both his part and our part in many areas of our lives. And for that reason, we can't really see the progress that we've been looking for. Today, we're going to deal with a major hindrance to breakthrough because you are distracted. And because of that distraction, you can't really see clearly because so many things are vying. So many voices are vying for your attention. You're unsure which direction to really go and what voice to really follow. Because of these conflicting voices, you're uncertain about the right route to take. Hopefully, today will be a step in the right direction of you hearing God's voice, not necessarily through me, but for yourself to take the steps that you need to enter in to the discipleship and direction that God needs you to go down. So Jesus said in Matthew 4:19, if you're with me, put that in the chat, Matthew 4:19, Matthew 4:19, come follow me and I will make you fishers of men. Come follow me, I will make you fishers of men. In there is a principle. Who, what, and how you follow determines what you will be made into. Who you follow has the ability to make you into something. And a lot of us, we're not necessarily listening to the voice of Jesus in our lives. There are many voices that we hear. The voice of our society, the voice of our frustrations, the voice of our fears, the voice of our anger, the voice of our family, the voices of distractions. There are many voices that we hear. And ultimately, the words that those voices lay out for us determine who and what we're allowing to disciple us, who we're allowing to form us and build us. So who you follow determines where you'll end up. I'll say it again. Who you follow determines where you will end up. Unfortunately, a lot of us are following incoherent voices, voices that don't have the power to bring us into the destiny that God established for us. The truth is, it's not only who we follow, but what we follow. Many of us are following, for instance, here on social media, we follow people who present ideas of who they are. There are many people who they sell courses, about how to make money or how to do real estate, how to do this and how to do that. And the reality is a lot of them, they make money from you buying the course, not doing the thing that they say they're actually doing. So they don't have the ability to form you and shape you into a real estate entrepreneur because they're not a real estate entrepreneur. So it's not just who you're following, but it's what you're actually following. Are you actually following what you think you're following? Because you will not be formed properly if you're not going to the right source. You're not going to be built and made the right way if you're submitting yourself to a false reality. And also, our formation is determined by the quality of our follow. So say we are with the right people or listening to the right voices, doing the right things. Sometimes it's not good enough to just be doing the right things. It matters the quality of your follow, right? Some of us we follow Jesus from a distance. We stay close enough so that we can see him off in the horizon, but far enough where we can still hang on to our own understanding, our own reality, our own lives. Right? We stay close enough to avoid compromising too much, but enough distance so that we can really just have our own space. So the quality, the depth, right? We see in the Gospels that there were people who followed Jesus. There were the three, Peter, James, and John, who had the more intimate experiences with Jesus, the mountain transfiguration and other events that occurred in the Gospels. Then there were the 12 disciples. And then there were the 70, right? And then there's the crowd and people at large. They all had varying relationships with Jesus. And so the quality, the level, right, of closeness and intimacy with who you're following, right, determines also where you'll end up. So who, what, and how. Put that in the chat for me. Who, what, and how. Who, what, and how. Many of us feel like we're behind or feel like we're not where God intended for us to be. And we feel like we're doing all of the right things simply because we have shown up. But showing up to the wrong place or showing up but not being consistent, that's the quality of our follow, determines whether or not we're actually going to go all the way and see the breakthrough that God intended for us. So understand, right, the voices that you listen to matter. The voices that you listen to matter. You cannot be shaped and formed by an illusion. You have to be following. You have to be following authenticity. And in a world filled with AI and imagination and illusion, a world filled with scammers, a world filled with people trying to present false narratives, false views, presenting their imaginations, right, their ideal views, it can be easy to be distorted by voices that are not healthy. So you have to check the quality of who and what you're allowing to shape you. Now, some of us are formed, it's not only people, but there are voices in society. There are ideas and ideologies that form and shape us. There are perspectives and views that have a voice, right? There are cultural norms in your country, in your community. There are cultural norms that may contradict God's intention for your life. And if you're more sensitive to the voice of the culture than the voice of God, you're going to miss what He intended for you, because you can't miss it. Moses was raised, right, in Egypt. He was raised in Pharaoh's house. However, despite coming from Egypt, God called him to judge the nation that brought him up. So the culture that had a hand in forming him clashed ultimately with the purpose of God for his life. But God needed him to be raised, groomed by, and trained by that culture so that he would have an understanding of what he was working with when it was time for God's hand to come upon him to bring judgment on Egypt and help set his people free. Sometimes God will allow you to be groomed into something that you're called to deliver people out of. We ask God, why me? Why did I grow up like this? Why am I in this place? Why am I in this? Have you ever thought to ask that maybe you're in an uncomfortable place or face an uncomfortable situation or circumstance because God intends to use you to be a bridge that brings people out of something and into something? Many of us refuse to hear the call to become the bridge. We're so busy being disappointed by what didn't work out and why things aren't the way we want them to be. We're so busy listening to the voices of our disappointments that we never become the bridge that brings people out of Egypt and into the future, into Canaan, into deliverance. We never become the bridge that people can walk on, that they can use to be rescued, because we're too busy looking for someone to be a bridge for us. And the reality is sometimes nobody's coming to help because God chose you to be the one to break the cycle. So many of us are stuck in the same place, in the same season, with the same people, doing the same thing, in the same cycle, because we are not willing to break out of the voice of our cultural limitations, the voices of our disappointments and setbacks, the voices of our own understanding and our own intellect, and fully into the voice of the Lord Jesus for our lives. And those of us who are following, some of us, we're not willing to follow closely and consistently enough to see his arm fully pull us over to the other side. We're close enough to be safe from complete demise, but we're not close enough to see true prosperity. And when I say prosperity, I'm not dealing with finances, but the prosperity of standing in God's will for your life. So we have some reflecting to do, some pondering, some thinking, some praying, and some personal examination. Father, am I really following your voice? Am I really open to you, or am I more sensitive to the voice of the flesh, the voice of what I can see with my own senses? Father, am I really, could things be better in my life? Could I be listening more clearly? Could it be, Father, that things aren't moving at the rate or the pace that I thought they should be because I'm simply not following you carefully enough? Should I really be in a different season than I am now? Did I miss a turn somewhere? Where am I really? As we continue to go deeper throughout this year, it's an important question to bring before the Lord and allow him to respond. So be careful what voice you listen to in this season. Be blessed.